Truth. I'm your host, Kit Coffrin. We are talking tonight about dreams. While I'm waiting on everyone to get on here, let me tell you a little bit about how you can get on here. If you have anything to contribute, feel free to jump on the show. You can get on here by just going to the Tabernacle of Truth and clicking on this Zoom link right here. Bam, and you're on. We meet up every Sunday at 6. This is Sunday, December 5th, 2021. This is a significant date in astrology, if you believe in all that. Basically, the sun had a solar eclipse, and we had a new moon, and it rose in the 13th house of the zodiac. It's called Ophiuchus. It's a man wrestling a serpent. So there's not a lot written about it out there, since it's not really one of the normal zodiac signs. Who knows what it means, but I think it's a significant time. And God made the signs in the heavens for us to follow. So if God made the heavens and this means something, then it's significant. Earl, do you know anything about astrology?
No, not too much. Shay does.
No, I don't.
Well, there's we're supposed to have a guest on. Can you get Shay to get Gia on here?
Yeah, hold on a minute.
She knows a lot about
Did I close out of it?
in popular culture right now. There's a lot of people saying that we're aliens. We're actually well, basically, if God is God of the universe, then he's God of not only Earth, but all the other planets as well. And so when these spirits incarnate physical bodies, they could incarnate physical bodies just about anywhere. And so kind of related a little bit to this dream world that we're going to be talking about tonight, is the idea of maybe we're all aliens. David should be hopping on here any minute. My mom said she was on her way home. They should be getting on shortly.
I'm on here.
Have you seen any of this stuff about alien races from other planets and all this? I keep seeing it pop up all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, it's good for storytelling, that kind of thing.
Well,
but they have been releasing.
If God is God of the whole universe, then just like he's God of every little insect and every little animal, he's got to be God of the aliens too.
Right. Yeah, they've got a new deal where they're openly investigating these UFO sightings from military aircraft, when they detect stuff, when there's no explanation.
I've got a guest that's going to be coming on. Hopefully, she said she was going to come on. I got a guest that knows all about this and claims to have inside knowledge about who's an alien, and maybe I'm an alien, maybe you're an alien.
I've heard a couple theories.
Well, we're definitely going to be talking about dreams, and that's what led me to talk to our guest that hopefully comes on soon. She knows about astral travel and out of body experiences, and believes that dreams really do have a significance. I personally don't ever remember my dreams. When I do, they're usually nightmares or something. I rarely remember my dreams, but I don't try to remember my dreams either. I tried to keep a dream journal this week, and it actually did work for me surprisingly quickly, because I never remember my dreams. But I definitely, when I woke up the other night, was standing in my front yard picking up trash before I woke up. I don't know why I'm picking up trash in my dreams, but apparently I was out in my front yard picking up trash before I woke up. As soon as I kept a journal by my bed, and I wrote it down as soon as as soon as I woke up, I started writing down what I was thinking. It felt like I just got back from a trip. And then I do this all the time. Whenever I go on a trip and I come back home, I see how dirty my yard is and I start picking it up.
Yeah.
And so I have the feeling that I was on a trip somewhere and I just got home.
Yeah, it's a good theory.
I'm on.
Hey, Mom.
Yep.
Do you ever remember your dreams?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I do.
What can you give us an example of a dream and give us an idea of what it was like? Did you go somewhere?
Oh, at different times. I can't remember now everything, but the most prominent dream that I had as a child was I don't know, I can't remember the name of it. It was a Mickey Mouse movie that had Fantasia. I think that's what it was. And he had a robe on like a wizard and a crown. And Fantasia was like, the music was going and going and going. It seems to me like there was water or something flowing. And I had that dream repeatedly. And then the other dream that I can really remember is when I was saved. And I felt like the Lord had, brought me the dove to show me that he knew he could hear me and knew my questions about whether or not God was real. And he sent me a bird in the dream. I think I told that story.
Yeah,
already.
I think I remember you saying something about that before on the show.
Yeah. And so I'll never forget that because that was so, so weird and so great. But every once in a while now I have dreamed of your father come in, not saying anything, but his presence. And I could actually see him in the dream. It's been a long time since that has happened, but I don't know the reason why I saw him, but I've yet to see, my mother or anybody else like that that's gone on.
I saw that Shay's on here. Shay, can you hear us? Can you unmute?
Hello.
Hey, Shay, you got to keep your pretty face on the screen. You're good for the show.
Oh.
So Shay, tell us, what kind of dreams do you usually remember? Do you ever remember your dreams?
Yeah. Actually, I've actually had many dreams that have actually come true. So my dreams are like actually happen in real life. So
That's very interesting. That's what we're looking for. I like I told David before you got on, I don't remember my dreams, but I started keeping a dream journal just this week to kind of for the show, and I felt like the very night that I started keeping a journal, the next morning I woke up and wrote about it and what was on my mind when I woke up, and I knew that I was out in my yard picking up trash before I woke up. And I was telling David that I had the feeling that I just got back from a trip, because that's what I do often when I get back from a trip is I'll find trash in my yard and I'll see how disgusting it looks and I'll go start picking things up. And that's what I felt like I was doing. Like I just got back from a trip and I was tidying up my yard. So it really does, in my opinion, it really does work to keep a dream journal. So tell me about an instance where something came true.
okay, for example, I used to have my best friend. She was pregnant. And one day I called her and I said, oh my God, I had a crazy dream that you had twin girls. Right. And she was like, don't say that because I'm getting ready to find out what it is. And then her boyfriend ended up calling me later that evening and it says, oh my God, they're twin girls. And she has twin girls now.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
David, give us a dream, David.
I was trying to think of it, but I really nothing comes to mind.
You can't remember
Right
them
now.
either?
Huh?
You can't remember them either?
I mean, I do sometimes, but it's not something that just like sticks in my memory.
Right.
I mean, if I made an effort to, I could probably write something down or whatever, but
Shay, does it ever feel like you're going anywhere on this dream that you remember?
No, it was just like an everyday thing, Sorry about the noise, guys.
That's okay.
But no, it was like an everyday thing. But I have all dreams about things that are good and then things that are also bad. I'll tell you guys another dream I've had. I had a dream that there was a baby being taken up, and everybody I loved and knew, like my family, were all up the spiral stairway, and it was like a baby just going up there to the light. And then I told my sister about it, and then she just started crying because apparently she had a miscarriage that same day.
Oh,
Wow,
wow.
that sounds like Jacob's ladder. That's people going up and down on a
She said she didn't
staircase.
want to tell anybody, but she ended up busting crying because I said that.
Yeah,
dang.
Wow.
that's powerful.
Yeah. So dreams are really crazy. And sometimes I see in this future, like sometimes you can see the future. I don't know, but I just have really weird dreams that come true.
Wow.
Hmm.
Another thing that, Shay, do you mind me talking about your special ability?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Shay is actually a superhuman. She has a superhuman ability to, she can see people's auras. She knows what color is around you. Does that work on video, Shay?
No.
No. It's very interesting. She can almost always peg exactly how I'm feeling based on something she can see that no one else can see.
Yes.
Lori Morgan used to say that she could see people's auras.
Probably could.
Remember her? Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about what the Bible says about dreams. In Genesis 48, it says, "We both had dreams. They answered, but there is no one to interpret them. Then Joseph said to them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." So Joseph believed that he could interpret dreams. And down here in Numbers, it says, "I, the Lord, reveal myself in visions and speak through dreams." In Psalms, it says, "God visits us in the night and gives our hearts counsel and instruction while we sleep." Song of Solomon says, "I was asleep, but my heart was awake. Listen, my beloved is knocking." So I've got a table of contents here on the left, and I got a lot of things I want to talk about. I'll just run through the table of contents, and if we can't get to it all, we can't get to it all. But I'd like to talk more about what the Bible says about dreams. And one thing I want to talk about is the father of Jesus. That's a character, Saint Joseph, that we really don't hear about at all. He only appears in a few books of the Bible, but very, very important character. Obviously, he's the person God chose to raise his son. So that's a very, very important person, obviously, but we don't really hear much about him. So I want to talk about Joseph. And then I'd also like to talk about Daniel. Daniel's probably the thing I studied the most this week, but Joseph, I think, is right up there in importance in his dreams. Then I'd like to talk about how some of these dreams can be proven, as far as like, is Daniel real? When did Daniel happen? Is it accurate? Is it historically provable? And then I'd like to talk about some science stuff at that point. And then I'd like to talk about some new age spiritual stuff, like traveling outside of your body. And I'd like to talk about something that one of my guests brought up. She's not on here yet. Hopefully Gia will join us soon. She wanted to talk about Edgar Cayce. And I was doing some looking into Edgar Cayce. You might remember in his dreams, he would heal people. Like people would write him letters all across the country, and he would go into this like dreamlike state and heal their bodies.
You talking about the radio guy?
No, he's not a radio guy. He's a psychic from back in like the Civil War period, like right after the Civil War. But Edgar Cayce, a lot of people probably would be offended. A lot of Christian people would probably be offended by some of the same things that he says. But actually, he's a big proponent of Jesus Christ. And we're going to talk a little bit about what Edgar Cayce said about Jesus. Then after that, I've got some stuff from the Brigham Young University, some devotionals, what they say about dreams. And it's a little new agey sounding, if you ask me. And then I'd like to talk a little bit at the end about the temple within us. So let's start with Job. This is what I got out of a thing that was this kind of overarching thought about dreams in the Bible. Dreams are an important part of many biblical stories and passages. They offer insight and foresight into the favored decisions or actions that should be made. Many dreams include visions of divine symbols or the Lord himself, sharing wisdom that changes the course of history. Conversely, some dreams represent a clear example of what could go wrong if the way of God is abandoned. Read the list below of biblical verses mentioned dreams and their importance. So we're going to start with Job. God speaks again and again, though people do not recognize it. He speaks in dreams, in visions of the night. When deep sleep falls on people as they lie in their beds, he whispers in their ears. Samuel, 1 Samuel 28:15. Samuel said to Saul, "Why have you disturbed me by bringing me up? I am in great distress," Saul said. "The Philistines are fighting against me, and God has departed from me. He no longer answers me, either my prophets or by dreams. So I have called on you to tell me what to do." Acts 2:17. In the last days, God says, "I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions. Your old men will dream dreams." In Daniel 1:17, it says, "To these 4 young men, God gave knowledge and an understanding of all kinds of literature and learning. And Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds." Here's a famous dream right here that they made a movie about, a really trippy movie called Jacob's Ladder. This is what I was referring to, Shay. You were saying you saw a stairway to heaven. As you can see in this old tapestry, there is a ladder with angels going up and down into the clouds. This is a dream that Jacob had way back, like I'm saying 700 BC. One of the famous dreams that everybody probably knows about is Joseph's dream. Joseph was about to basically, Mary was pregnant and it wasn't his baby. And so he has a choice. He can either out her and everybody in the town stone her to death, or he can like divorce her in secrecy and spare her life. So he decides he's going to divorce her secretly and let her live. Well, then he goes to bed that night and he has a dream. An angel comes to him and says that not to be afraid to make her his wife, that baby is meant for greatness, that the baby is divine. And so he immediately, as soon as he hears that, he goes and takes her as his wife. And what I was not aware of, at least, I never really thought about it that much. I don't hear about it very often, is that Joseph actually had 4 different dreams. In the first dream, it said to call the baby Jesus. So Saint Joseph is the one who named Jesus. And if you look at what the name Jesus means, I'll just read through this. Jesus is a masculine is a masculine given name derived from the name Iesus or Iesus. I'm not sure how to even say that. The Greek form of the Hebrew and Aramaic name Yeshua. Yeshua has its roots, and it lies in the name Yeshua. It is etymologically related to another biblical name, Joshua. Jesus is usually not used as a given name in English, or Jesus is not usually a name given in English, while its counterpart is long-lasting popularity among people of Spanish language, like Jesus. There have been various proposals as to the literal etymological meaning of the name Yeshua. Jehovah saves, is salvation, is a saving cry, is a cry for saving, a cry for help, is my help. Those are the possible interpretations of Jehovah. So his name literally means salvation. And so he was told by an angel to call him that. Now let's talk about his second dream. After the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem, Mary and Joseph stayed there and were living in a house while Jesus was growing into a young child. The wise men had been warned by God to return to their country another way because they might be followed by Herod, who had sent out a decree to kill all the boy babies at the age of 2. That's when Joseph received a second dream that was recorded in Matthew 2:13. Now when they, the wise men, had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise and take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt and remain there until I tell you. For Herod is going to search for the child and destroy him. In the third dream, it says, after Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, Get up, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who were trying to take the child's life are dead. And then in the fourth dream, it says, but when he heard that Archelaus, I don't know how to say his name, Archelaus was reigning in Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee and went and lived in a town called Nazareth. So was fulfilled what was said through the prophets, that he would be called a Nazarene. So that's, if it wasn't for Saint Joseph, his dad, which we rarely hear anything about, Jesus would not have survived into adulthood.
Huh.
So dream saved Jesus. Dreams also foretell of Jesus as well. This is a video by a guy named Mark Finley, and he explained to me why you should read Daniel. This is the words of Jesus. Jesus is sitting on the Mount of Olives, and he's looking down at the second temple, and he's got all of his apostles all around him. And he says, so when you see standing in the holy place, the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet Daniel, let the reader understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let no one on the housetop go down to take anything out of the house. Let no one in the field go back to get their cloak. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. Pray that your flight will not take place in winter or on the Sabbath, for then there will be a great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again. So he's sitting on the Mount of Olives, and it's standing right then. And the apostles are all standing around. So to them, that must have sounded strange. But what he's doing is he's prophesying something that's going to come in 70 AD. How old is Jesus at this time? Right before he gets crucified, he's about 33, right? So,
Right.
So this is at least 40 years in the future. He's saying not this whole temple's not going to be here anymore. But right there, look at this part. There's this part right here. It says spoken through the prophet Daniel. So Jesus is telling us that Daniel prophesied this. And if you look at when Daniel was written in 700 BC. So this would have been almost half a millennium before Jesus actually said it again.
Wow.
So let me just, I've got a whole bunch. Has anybody got anything they want to add at this point before I go on?
You know, you had earlier Acts 2:17.
Right here.
Yeah, so if you look at Joel 2:28 in the Old Testament, it's pretty much the same verse.
In the last days, God says, I'll pour out my
Point that out.
spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your young men will see visions. Your old men will dream dreams. It says pretty much the same thing in Joel.
Yeah, so read Joel 2:28.
Joel 2:28.
Yeah.
I see that Layla's on here now. Hi, Layla.
Hey.
So we were just talking about dreams. I was kind of giving them a preview that we had a guest coming on that knew a lot about dreams. I hope you don't mind, but we started off talking about the astrology that was happening with the solar eclipse and the new moon, and we were talking about people that I keep seeing things about how there's aliens here on Earth, but it's like aliens that are inside of people's bodies. And I've even seen, I saw today an advertisement for an almanac about how you figure out which alien race you are. I know that you know a little bit about this, and I was just hoping you could kind of enlighten us. So I was saying to David that if God is God of the whole universe, then that means he's God of the insects, he's God of the monkeys, the birds, he's God of everything. Well, if there's other planets out there, that means he's God of those aliens too. So even the aliens that the government's investigating right now, he's God of those people as well. And so can you just kind of maybe solidify that for us? Do you know anything about this?
On which one? Is it on just the
I know I
aliens?
covered a lot.
lot.
Just whatever you know about it. Just give us something about what I just said.
I figured that the aliens you're referring to would be what we've termed as star seeds. Does that sound
Starseed.
familiar?
That sounds interesting. What's a starseed?
A star seed is someone who has a soul that was seeded from another planet or another star system, another galaxy. Like we have these seeds that are Earth seeds, and then we have star seeds, and we have light workers.
So would Jesus be one of these?
Jesus is from the Christ consciousness, which is actually actually that is like where we get all of the information that we I don't even know how to explain this. Sorry, I'm having one of those moments, but
I'm following you. There's actually a video at the bottom of this at the very end that says almost the same thing you just said. There's a woman that claims that she's channeling the Christ consciousness, and basically it sounds like she's giving an interview with Jesus, and he's saying what he thinks about what we think about Jesus. And it's pretty interesting. What does Jesus think about Jesus?
Jesus thinks about Jesus would be that he actually, it has nothing to do with him. That's what he says, but it's everything to do with God. So God can use anyone. However, that time he used Jesus, and Jesus is what we refer to as an ascended master. He is someone who has been able to show lots of people how to ascend or walk that spiritual path. And his message basically, I'm trying to filter this a little bit.
Layla is a little bit spacey. She's an alien, so her mind comes and goes. So we'll have to bear with her. Hey, David, we've talked about something similar. That you've brought something up like this a couple of times about. Did Jesus reincarnate several times throughout history? Like, what's up with Melchizedek? Melchizedek, Jesus says he's a high priest in the order of Melchizedek. And they say something similar about Melchizedek, like he had no parents, and he was it says he went away as quickly as he appeared, or something to that effect. And actually, this stuff sounds crazy, really, in our modern world. But if you go back and you read the Bible, it says almost these exact things, and it's a little bit liberating to know that everything you think about the Bible is not revealed. There's plenty to uncover. We could talk about the Bible for 1,000 years and never cover all the richness there is to it. So David just brought up a Bible. Here's a perfect example. I didn't even know there was a book called.
And that's the reason why, you'll a lot of people, they'll say, "Oh, I've read the Bible 3 or 4 times, right? I've read it 4 times. I've read the Bible." Well, I mean, yeah, I've had to read certain parts of it like 100 times. Or maybe not that many.
You might not ever. To me, I would never arrive at these conclusions without reading what other giants in the industry have found out. I'm watching people that are digging things up over in the Middle East, and this stuff's only been dug up for 10 years, and it hasn't even been mainstreamed yet.
Yeah, and then there's revolutions and all these transformations, worldwide that occur by like a change in somebody's interpretation, or something new is,
or some Hebrew script that
changes everything.
Yeah. Well, look, like Joel, I didn't even know there was a book of Joel. So let's look at Joel 2:28. And it shall come to pass afterward that I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Whoa, that is the exact same verse. It's word for word.
Yeah.
Why is that? Oh,
I don't know. Well, that's what I didn't read them enough, each of them, to know what was going on, what the plot was.
So is Joel in the Old Testament?
Yeah, Joel's in the Old Testament.
So, and Acts is in the New Testament. So they were just quoting. They were just quoting there.
Right. Yeah, that's what I figured. Maybe.
That's awesome that you caught that. You're quite the biblical scholar, sir.
Well, and it was for no particular reason. I felt like I had just read that, somewhere else.
That's awesome.
So I searched around for it.
Hey, Robert, what do you think about the possibility of maybe you're an alien and you just haven't realized it yet?
I think I would come closer to believing that we're living in a matrix.
Well, no, you opened the matrix when you were born.
Yeah,
what the Bible says, isn't it?
Exactly.
Didn't it say something like that?
Well, here's what I think about that. I actually had, I don't know if I heard it in a dream but it did come to me. I think when I was coming out of a dream, I was thinking about, I didn't know how to write it down in my journal exactly, but I got the feeling that when you're dreaming, there really is no up, down, there's no time. And so you could spend an eternity in a dream. And when you wake up, all of a sudden things go back to normal.
Well, have you ever had a dream where you're dreaming that you're having a dream?
For sure.
And you wake up and then you're still in the dream?
Gia knows it. We actually just had a conversation about this. Gia, what is it whenever you're doing that? What's going on?
I remember several times thinking that I had not slept all night. And then like the more I had these dreams, the more I realized and started paying attention to my dreams and writing stuff down. acknowledging them and thinking about them throughout the day, then I realized what was going on, especially after I had suspicions and come across this book by Sylvia Brown, The Book of Dreams, and which confirmed everything that I thought anyways. And then any other research I've done on it, just because it was so intriguing. I've seen myself just laying there. I've seen, the things in the room. I've seen the things around my house. I've even floated through my living room in the dark, feeling myself actually being pulled back into my body. But when that has happened, when you think that you're dreaming about dreaming or dreaming about not being able to sleep or whatever it is, seeing yourself, you're actually technically that's when you're astral projecting, and you're actually still in like the room or the area of where you're sleeping, so you can actually consciously see what's going on. And it's basically, when I say consciously, that means that your subconscious is your dreaming mind, and your conscious is your right now in the moment mind. So whenever you're dreaming, usually it's the subconscious mind that is in charge, and that is always, well, it's always really in charge. But the conscious, at times, I haven't like fully figured out what the reason is on the frequency of it, like when it happens and how often it happens. But whenever that happens, when your conscious is awake enough, but you're still like observing, what's going on, that is when what we call lucid dreaming. So lucid dreaming would be when your subconscious and your conscious are awake and meet. So then you get to observe, what the subconscious is checking out.
Jay, have you ever had a lucid dream?
Uh,
Where you're traveling around and watching yourself sleep?
no, never had that.
Shay, you ever had that?
I've had that one time.
I have had that feeling where I'm in and out of dreaming. I feel like I'm awake, but I'm still dreaming. I definitely have had that a lot. Seems like that happens all the time. That's pretty common.
Mm-hmm.
She mentioned, well, I'm sorry, what was your name again? You were talking about the frequencies a minute ago. Frequency.
I
Layla,
just,
is it?
yeah.
Okay.
On frequency, I'm really not sure like how frequent it happens and what, like, it's usually a lot to do with triggers, things that are going on, like things that you're thinking about before you go to sleep. That can actually change things, like before you go to bed, if you decide to think about remembering your dreams, and you make that something that you say to yourself, like, I'm going to remember my dreams before you go to bed. Usually it takes practice over time, but immediately sometimes you can start remembering your dreams, and then like writing it down in a dream journal. That helps a lot.
I took Gia's
I
advice.
keep hearing that catchword though, frequencies, a lot. Like I've been hearing it a lot lately. People talking about,
Which
you
he knows a lot about that too.
Can affect you or affect everything around it in a certain way.
Einstein believed that medicine of the future would be the medicine of frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And that's interesting. That's actually, maybe that's a topic we should talk about next week. Frequencies.
Well, I mean, there's some people that really, really get into it like, they're pretty technical about, like, there's certain ones that are like, okay, so look up the God frequency, and you'll probably find endless.
Yes. Well, I keep seeing people in the music industry talking about how we've been brainwashed because we're listening at 440 gigahertz instead of 432. You heard this? Like
No, I haven't heard
the
that.
perfect harmony, perfect frequency is like 432, but we're all being corrupted by some kind of devil lyric like 440, where it's got something to do with that concert where everyone died, or not everyone, but like 9 people were killed at the Travis, whatever his name is, the rapper. What's his name, Shay? Do you know his name? Travis something?
Travis Scott.
Travis Scott. There was some kind of a concert down in Texas and everyone got trampled. I even saw a TikTok video where it showed something that looked like the Grim Reaper flying through the crowd right before everyone got killed. Pretty creepy incident, but he was saying, Travis Scott was saying some pretty nutty things on stage before all that happened. He was talking about how we all heard the same song over and over and over again, and we don't even know it, or something like that. It was pretty ominous speech that he gave before that concert. If something about the end times, it's something about if you, he said something along the lines of, if you were all good and this is the end times, then you're something about you're in hell with me, something like that. Something along the lines of, if this is the end times and you're here with me, then we're all here in hell. And
He
you
said
didn't
that?
go off. Travis Scott, the rapper, right
that?
before all those people got trampled in that concert.
It's a weird thing to say.
Yeah, really satanic. But there's a lot
I
of
don't know if you
people-
consider, I don't know if you consider satanic if it's not, actually giving credit to
Who was
Satan or
it?
any kind of
That's-
demonic
Not
power.
necessarily.
But it could be that, like you said, more of some like a prelude to events that were getting ready to happen. But you could say the same thing, about anything. Take anybody's words and be like, oh, it was a premonition.
Yeah. This is a little off topic, but who was it? Was it me and you, Kit, or something about Marilyn Manson and Justin Bieber and Kanye West?
they
had
did a
Halloween,
prayer.
like service thing.
Yeah, they did a prayer service
Yeah.
together. It was pretty cool, actually.
I don't know. It was-
Marilyn Manson is now I asked my principal about that, and I think he told me something along the lines of Marilyn Manson's parents were preachers or something.
Well, just the way they went about it. I mean, did you notice how ceremonial it was?
3 people giving a prayer at one microphone is kind of different for sure.
And then like Justin Bieber was sitting on the ground and he's like rubbing Marilyn Manson's shoe or something weird.
I didn't
like
even
that,
see
you
that.
know?
I don't
Yeah.
see that part.
Yeah, you guys see like, and it was just weird.
So
Yeah.
Robert, did you have something you want to say?
Well, I was just making a thing about you mentioning Marilyn Manson. People get a misconception about him because of his act, his shtick that he does for his concerts and stuff. And I was just watched a video on Dee Snider last night, Twisted Sister, and how he got brought up again in front of Congress and had to testify and everything back in the mid '80s. And John Denver was there. What's his name? Zappa.
Exactly.
He was there. Frank Zappa.
Yeah.
And they're all wearing suits and ties. They're giving their speech about basically how rock and roll isn't evil and it's not going to kill your kids.
Like
And-
who was it that bit that was it Ozzy Osbourne?
Everything you're saying was my
Yeah.
senior research paper.
It
It was
wasn't-
called "Is It Evil? Is
Just
It Art?"
trying to sell tickets.
But Dee Snider walks into in front of Congress. Al Gore was there and a bunch of others wearing his whole shtick. He had his poofy blonde hair, eye makeup, sleeveless shirt that said Twisted Sister on it. And he goes in there and blows them away because, he's an intelligent, articulate guy. And he sat there and told him, like, dude, I don't do drugs. I don't drink alcohol. I don't do anything bad. So what are you trying to say about me?
Yeah.
And they took a lyric, one of his songs, and it was Al Gore's wife that said that it's all this bad stuff. It's evil. It talks about S&M and bondage and all that. And he's like, we wrote that song about our guitarist that was getting ready to go into surgery to get throat polyps. Basically, you're making us evil just because you're looking for evil.
Yeah.
You're finding it where you want to find it.
Yeah, like you, it's kind of like you were saying, Kit, where like you're giving that thing the power.
Yes,
Of
yes.
what
I
you're
was just
giving it,
thinking
not,
about that.
it's not because it has its own power.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me and Kid have had that discussion before too. Things that have as much power as you give it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right. Who's the one? Who's the one being evil? The person who thinks the cards have power, or like the Magic the Gathering. Like if you're saying
Yeah.
Magic the Gathering is evil or Harry Potter is evil, who's giving it the power? The person saying it's evil, or the person who just thinks it's a movie or a game?
Yeah, or just some author.
Right. Right. I knew people who were hell bent against never watching Harry Potter when those movies came out
They have
because
picket
they dealt
lines.
with witches.
Yeah, they
They're
have picket
witches
lines.
and magic. And
Yeah.
but you know,
I mean-
they'll say the same thing about tarot cards, but it's like you could use a deck
See,
of
but I
poker
kind of,
cards with tarot cards.
but see, I approach with caution when it comes to this topic too, though. I'm one of those people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid of a stack of cards. Like I'll pick them up and read them or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't want to think about it too much.
what's the possibility that God made that phenomenon happen? Like if you're throwing bones down on the ground or you're rolling dice or whatever, I mean, whatever significance the ancients, like the Romans, had for like casting bones or whatever, what's the likelihood that God really does? I mean, even in ancient religions like down in South America, they believe in some kind of stuff. What's the likelihood that that power comes from God to give them that message?
300%.
Everything comes from God, right?
Hmm.
So, well, according to the Bible, dreams come from God. At least some of them do. So let's talk about another really famous dream, Daniel 2. I'm going to be reading about Nebuchadnezzar. Unless David, can you read this? Can you see what I've got on the screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Where
Where are we at? We starting at?
You want to take a turn at reading?
Sure. Yeah.
Will you read A right there, or part 1?
The trouble dreaming.
Yeah.
Or the troubling dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, number 1, the troubling dream. Now, in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his spirit was so troubled that his sleep left him. In the second year, it is difficult to understand the exact time this speaks of. Some commentators say this happened while Daniel was in his 3-year training course. Others say that it was soon after he finished. So yeah, because he kind of young at this time. He was a boy. There was like 4 of them that were really smart, had like were special kids, gifted with all this knowledge.
Yeah, they had the head guy that was over the eunuchs was charged to go find
Right. Okay.
some kids that were royal that had no blemishes.
Yeah. And yeah, eunuchs is a weird topic too. But anyways, the ancient Babylonians spoke of the beginning and end of the reign of their kings in a way that often overlapped years. Therefore, the year 602 BC could be both the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign and after 3 years of training for the Hebrew youths. And my cousin Vinny. His spirit was so troubled that his sleep left him. There was something disturbing about this dream, and Nebuchadnezzar knew that it was unusually significant.
Okay, so Nebuchadnezzar knew on his own there was something weird about this dream, right? So in the next part, it says Nebuchadnezzar demands to know the dream and its interpretation from the wise men. Then the king gave the command to call the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, the Chaldeans to tell the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king, and the king said to them, I have had a dream, and my spirit is anxious to know the dream. Then the Chaldeans spoke to the king of Aramaic. O king, live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will give the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, my decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me and its interpretation, you shall be cut in pieces, and your house shall be made an ash heap.
Dang.
However, if you tell the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive from me gifts, rewards, and great honor. Therefore, tell me the dream and its interpretation. They answered again and said, let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will give its interpretation. The king answered and said, I know for certain that you would gain time, because you see that my decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me, there's only one decree for you, for you have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me till the time has changed. Therefore, tell me the dream, and I shall know that you can give me its interpretation. So he is not telling them the dream. He may not even remember the dream, but he feels like if this dream is significant, like I feel like it is for the future, then if it's from your God, if you have the true God, then you'll know what the dream is, and I don't have to tell you. And he's saying, he's threatening them there. He says he's going to save them time. He's just like, straight up, if you lie to me, I'm just going to off you right then. So, don't worry about trying to make stuff up, because if you're not the real one, then I'm just going to off you. I thought it was interesting. One thing it says right here, he doesn't say until the end of time or till the end of the world. He says till the time has changed. The Babylonians were astrologers, and they believed in all this higher frequency stuff and all this kind of like the Aztecs did. Like there were ages. There was the end of an age, and we would go into a new age, like the age of Pisces, age of Aquarius. And so if you look, I mean, that's pretty significant there that he doesn't say, for you agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me till the time has changed. I think that's what that means. He says, make known the dream to me. It is hard to say if Nebuchadnezzar really remembered the dream or not. Perhaps he had a general sense of it, but only a vague remembrance of the details. Therefore, tell me the dream. I shall know that you can give me its interpretation. Nebuchadnezzar couldn't know for certain that the wise men gave a correct interpretation of the dream, but he could test their ability to tell what he dreamed. Despite their protest, Nebuchadnezzar didn't ask too much of these magicians, the astrologers and the sorcerers and the Chaldeans. These men made their living on their supposed ability to contact the gods and gain secrets from the spirit realm. If they were really what they claimed to be, they should be able to tell Nebuchadnezzar both the dream and its interpretation. He says, you shall be cut to pieces. The harsh threat of Nebuchadnezzar and the method of execution he described are both perfectly consistent with the character of ancient Eastern monarchs. Archer described one method of dismemberment. 4 trees were bent inward and tied together at the top. The victim was tied to these 4 trees with a rope at each limb, and then the top of the rope was cut and the body snapped into 4 pieces. Oh my God, that's like 4 catapults ripping you in half. Wow.
That takes creativity,
Wow.
because that's getting trees bent down, which you gotta get flexible trees,
Wow.
then get the rope to hold the trees down, then get more rope to hold the guy down. When
That
you
must have
could
been where they came up with the idea of a catapult.
I doubt it.
It's
But
just a
that's
tree on
probably where they,
wheels.
That's probably where they came up with the idea of using horses instead, because it was much easier.
Yeah, just chariots. Just-
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's something wicked about using a tree, for sure. That's like the power of the earth or something.
You gotta get a team of guys to bend a tree down.
It was probably a palm tree, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it had to have been a big tree, though. The Chaldeans. This is the first mention of the Chaldeans as a class of soothsayers to the king. Critics take the use of this word as a mistake that only 2nd century BC writer would make. Critics suppose that in Daniel's day, the term Chaldean was only used for a racial designation, describing what the Chaldeans thought was the master race who ruled Nebuchadnezzar's superpower empire. But linguistic research has demonstrated that the Babylonian word for an astrologer priest and their word for their supposed master race were homonyms, both having the sound Chaldean, but each retaining their own meaning. This is the same way that the English sound two can also be two, or two. Daniel's understanding of this is clear from the text because he also used the term Chaldean in its racial sense. Then the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic. Daniel 2:4, 7 through 28. The biblical text is in Aramaic, not Hebrew. This is the only section of the Bible written in Aramaic. This was the language of the Babylonian Empire. I didn't know that. The wise men explained the impossibility of Nebuchadnezzar's request. The Chaldeans answered the king and said, "There is not a man on earth who can tell the king's matter. Therefore, no king, lord, or ruler has ever asked such things of any magician, astrologer, or Chaldean. It is a difficult thing that the king requests, and there is no other who can tell it to the king except the gods, whose dwelling is not with flesh. There is not a man on earth who can tell the king's matter." When the Chaldeans said this, they admitted that true revelation comes from God down to man. They understood, perhaps against their own inclinations, that revelation was not an achievement of man. Despite all their wisdom, real and imagined, these wise men had no answer for Nebuchadnezzar, because only God could bring an answer to the king. They were like some modern ministers of our own day who spend their time studying philosophy, psychiatry, psychology, social science, political science, and then continue under the pretense of being God's messenger to men. Well, you know, I don't know. What do you guys think about that right there? Because, I mean, now, if you're taking, like with Jordan Peterson, he talks about psychology of the Bible. And yeah, I do understand that like a lot of people in the early 20th century saw psychology as a type of religion, and science is almost, social science definitely has become like a type of religion, but it's only a bad thing when you take God out of it, right? I mean, thinking about how you think, that's psychology. I don't think it's bad unless you're saying God doesn't exist. There were people like Nietzsche who said God is dead, but if you actually read Nietzsche's words, that's not what he meant at all. He means we killed God, not God is dead, which is a totally different statement.
Do you ever think that maybe it's not always going to present itself as being the devil either? So a lot of times there are like, it's almost a lot of like every time, but I've noticed that when they present themselves to be a messenger of God, or show these like symbols and stuff in their messages, they all have like some type of meaning to them, as far as like whether it be in the dream or just, you know, a vision or whatever. They all like have some sort of symbolic meaning, and eventually, if you really like use your intuition and, you know, trust in what God tells you in your own heart, you'll be able to decipher the difference between which ones are the truth and which ones are not, as far as like seeing if maybe the devil's behind something. More than likely it's not gonna look like the devil. Like he never shows his horns right off the bat. So, just like,
I'm still soaking that in. Yeah, so I think that God is in everything, and there's several places where it says the total contradiction of what we would normally think, and I'm open to finding God anywhere.
mhm.
So I'm going to now just skip through the actual parts that are in the Bible. These gray parts are actually from the Bible. These are commentaries in between. I'm going to speed this up and go through Daniel's dream interpretation here. A furious Nebuchadnezzar sentences all his men to death. Then God reveals the dream to Daniel. Then Daniel asks his companions for prayer. The four guys you were mentioning, David, the young men.
Yeah.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
There you
God reveals Nebuchadnezzar's dream and its interpretation to Daniel. And then Daniel praises God for the revelation. Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his, and he changes the times and the seasons. There, he changes the times. There it is again. He removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep, secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. I thank you and praise you, O God of my fathers. You have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to what we asked of you, for you have made known to us the king's demand. So in this, here he describes Nebuchadnezzar's dream. You, O king, were watching. He's talking about in the dream. So he's saying Nebuchadnezzar was outside of his body watching this whole thing. And behold, a great image. This is the same word they use for idol. Image, idol, same thing. When we were reading about idolatry, this would be the same word. This great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you, and its form was awesome. This image's head was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You watched while a stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet of iron clay and broke them in pieces. Then the iron and the clay and the bronze and the silver and the gold were crushed together, become like chaff from the summer threshing floors. The wind carried them away so that no trace of them was found. And the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Now, we've been talking for a few weeks about metaphors in the Old Testament. I don't have to, I doubt I have to quiz you guys for you to know what he means by stone. Shay, what do you think he means by stone's going to crush this statue? What's the stone? It's going to turn into a mountain.
I'm not really sure.
I was hoping you would say that so I can explain it to you. So the Old Testament.
Sounds like you're picking on her.
No, I'm using it. This is the audience I want to talk to. The people that don't know, that are out there, other people that are watching out there that don't know what the stone is.
So you're saying you know what it is?
For sure. Don't you know what it is?
No, not right offhand.
Didn't we talk about Moses striking the stone? That's the reason why he wasn't allowed in the
chapter
promised
2,
land.
verse 31.
That's why Moses wasn't allowed in the promised land, because he struck the stone instead of talking to it.
Yeah. So we're in chapter 2, verse 31. Wait, where are we at? Yeah.
31 through 35.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so
the stone that smote the image
this is
became a
what
great mountain.
there's no way they could have known what this meant. This is a painting of the dream.
How are you saying that has anything to do with Moses?
The stone will become a mountain. It's going to crush all the empires. The head of gold is the Babylonian king. He says the head of gold is you. And he says that of silver, another empire will come. And he names Cyrus. Now, the interesting part of this, let me go right up here to this red letters here. This is what I'm getting at. The book of Isaiah was written 700 to 740 BC, and it names Cyrus as the conqueror of Babylon 150 years in advance. Before anyone could have even known who Cyrus was.
Okay.
Isaiah is saying Cyrus is going to conquer you.
Okay.
Here it says, Cyrus the Great respected the customs and religions. This is from Wikipedia. Cyrus the Great respected the customs and religions of the lands he conquered. This became a very successful model for centralized administration and establishing a government working to the advantage of the profit of its subjects. The administration of the empire through satraps and the vital principle of forming a government at Passagarde were the works of Cyrus. That's a chess move, Passagarde. What is sometimes referred to as the Edict of Restoration. It's actually two edicts described in the Bible as being made by Cyrus the Great, left a lasting legacy on the Jewish religion. According to Isaiah 45:1 of the Hebrew Bible, God anointed Cyrus for this task, even referring to him as Messiah, the anointed one. And he is the only non-Jewish figure in the Bible to be called so. So the conqueror of Babylon, a Persian, according to this, Isaiah 45:1 was called the Messiah. Now, Daniel prophesies to Nebuchadnezzar that another king will come, and he calls out Cyrus as the conqueror. Now, what happens is Babylon is so huge. The walls are so huge. No one thinks that there's any way Babylon could fall. It says that the walls are as thick as two chariots. So they can race two chariots down the middle of these walls. Now, still till today, the size of our roads are based on the width of a wagon, a horse-drawn wagon. And so basically, the walls of Babylon are the size of a standard two-lane highway. And so no one thinks there's any way that they could be conquered. Well, Cyrus, what he does, it prophesies in the Bible that he would redirect the river. And 150 years later, Cyrus does that exact thing. He makes irrigation ditches out into the desert, and the whole river drains out into the desert. And the river goes through the middle of Babylon. So he takes his whole army right up the riverbed, the dry riverbed, right into the heart of the city. And it's in the middle of their festival, and they're having a feast, and they're all getting drunk. And because of this, all of the gates on the outer gates of the city are locked, but the gates on the inside are all unlocked because everyone's getting drunk and having a festival. So this army of Cyrus just walks right into the heart of the city, and all the gates are open, and they just come in and just take them over easily. And Daniel is prophesying this 700 BC, and no one knew who the hell Cyrus was for at least 150 years after that. Now, in Daniel, he's describing the fall of the Roman Empire. Fall of the Roman Empire didn't happen until like 400 AD. And he's talking about these four kingdoms that are going to fall. So if you look in this picture down here at the bottom, he says the feet are of clay and of iron. And the Roman Empire was split in two. There was the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire. And it says that they mingled the seed of men, which is in Europe, the custom is for kings and queens of different countries to intermarry so that they could create union amongst their different countries. And it also says that once that the stone smashes all this metal, it turns it all into chaff, and the stone grows and becomes a mountain. Just like we've talked about before, that your house has to be built on a foundation of stone, not sand. The house has to be built on the rock. Moses struck the rock. It's just another one of those metaphors, like we were talking about, the whole Bible being one book. The lamb that saved Isaac, the 1-year lamb, was a sacrifice that God made to save Isaac's life as a metaphor, so we would understand it a millennium later. And so here you have a dream in Daniel where he's foretelling that the Persians will take over after the Babylonians, and after that the Greek, and after that the Romans, and all those empires will be smashed by Christ, and Christ's message will be carried throughout the whole world. Right? Robert?
Sorry, I was muted. That's kind of the way I got out of it.
This whole article, these are articles. If you click on it, see it turns into a hand. This one right here, it explains the 4 kingdoms of Daniel. This is on Wikipedia. Now I'd like to just, has anybody got anything they want to say about that before we move on to some other topics? So that was a really powerful dream in the Bible, where he is talking about Christ taking over the whole world. And also where there's a lot more we could talk about Daniel. We'll hit Daniel later on again. I want to talk about Daniel's name when his name changed. I want to talk about him being in the lion's den and all that. We can go over Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego another time. That's a rabbit hole that'll take a while. I did want to show you this archaeological artifact here. This is called the Cyrus cylinder. It's on display in London, and all of Cyrus's, we know exactly when all this stuff happened because Cyrus stamped his name on all of his documents. And so all of this is pretty well documented. We know exactly when Babylon fell, when Cyrus took it over. So we can pretty much gather how accurate all of this stuff is that's in Daniel with archaeological evidence. So one thing I wanted to talk about with the possibility of us, if we are traveling in our dreams and we're getting messages in our dreams from spirit guides or angels or whatever you want to call them, I guess the real question is our body real? Is our body real, or is our mind real? Is it our soul? The Bible tries to tell us that our soul is eternal and our bodies are not real, that they're going to turn to ash. Our bodies are nothing. They're just vehicles we ride around in, kind of like the Matrix, kind of like those science fiction movies like what's the Avatar movie. Now, sometimes when people talk about this stuff, it can feel extra biblical. When we start talking about this stuff, it feels like some people I feel like they turn it off, like they're not interested, or that maybe they're afraid they're going to corrupt themselves. It's a stumbling block because they feel like it's not real, but the Bible tells us it is real. So I don't understand really where we start getting hard of heart and not able to hear. I think it's brainwashing. I think brainwashing has made us hard of hearing. The Bible says it over and over and over again, but still we kind of reject it. because I actually think that's a byproduct of us being brainwashed by science. We can say we're against science, but if you don't believe that your body's a vehicle we ride around in and that the real self is in the soul, then you don't believe the Bible. What do you think, David?
I mean, there's a lot of philosophers who have talked about the same topic.
Well, I want to do an exercise. I want to do an exercise with you guys. We're all going to do this. Get loose. Stand up if you want to. Everybody sit up tight in your chairs. Get comfy. We're going to do some astral traveling. All right?
Yeah.
Okay, everybody's got to close their eyes. Close your eyes.
Okay.
All right, I want you to look down at yourself as you are. Look at your clothes. You don't have, look with your inner eye. Don't open your eyes, but use your imagination to build your outfit. What are you wearing? What color shoes you got? Don't look, don't cheat. What color shirt are you wearing? All right, now I want you to imagine there are two selves on the other side of you. On the right side and on the left side, there's two versions of you, mirror versions. All right, now to your right, I want you to imagine you at your lowest possible self. Not just you at your worst moment, but how other people see you, or at least how you perceive that other people have seen you. You are your worst enemy sometimes, and you probably imagine the worst self than other people have even seen. When a stranger comes up to you, they don't know all of your inner thoughts. This version of you is the sloppiest, laziest, stupidest version of you. What are you wearing? Ridiculous. Look at your hair. You got Cheetos all over you. You got stains all over your shirt. Now look over at the left side over here. Look at what you're wearing over here. Look at, this is your best version of yourself. Not the best you've ever been, but like how you saw yourself on your best day. You are strutting. You're standing up tall. Your hair looks perfect. Look how shiny your shoes are because they're all clean. You haven't stepped in any mud puddles yet. What kind of belt are you wearing? What kind of pants you got on? What shirt you got on? What kind of watch do you have on? Is it the newest iPhone watch? Is it a Rolex made of gold? What's the best possible version of you? All right, now everybody take 2 steps over to your left. Open your eyes and look down. You are the best possible version of you. The only difference is how you think about yourself. Are you condemning yourself all the time? Are you holding yourself back with all these negative thoughts about how you are? You have the ability to be the best possible you at every given moment of the day. The power is within you to be the best. Were you guys able to see yourself? Did you feel a shift when you moved over into the other body? I feel it every time. Were you guys traveling with me? Shay, did you do it? She's shaking her head.
Yeah, I was doing it.
I did that with somebody one time, and it revealed a lot about who they were, because to themselves, because when they saw their best possible self, they saw Don Johnson from Miami Vice. And I thought that was really strange that they saw themselves as Don Johnson, of all people. He wanted to be a DEA agent. I didn't go that far with it. I didn't become a different person. I just had different clothing on. But were you standing different? Was your posture different? Me, myself, when I saw myself destitute, my posture was bent over and I was just, I could see myself with bad posture. When I saw the other one, I walked different, I talked different, stood different. What are you thinking, David? Did you do it? What
Yeah,
kind of-
I was hanging in there for a little bit. Yeah.
what kind, did your shoes change? Did your watch change? From one you to the other?
No. But I was thinking you had to be careful with that because at the point where you're like duct taped to a chair, and you're in a dark dungeon, you're in your worst, darkest
Right.
nightmare. You get scary and lonely.
That it could. They say that about astral traveling too. They say that they say that
Been
it's astral
kidnapped
traveling.
and
Well, whenever you're astral traveling, if you're not doing it on purpose, you could end up in a place you don't want to be.
yeah.
You could be talking to people you don't want to talk to.
Yeah.
Layla, have you ever encountered someone that was scary on the other side?
I have actually. I have. Well, since I was little, actually, I've encountered these different. I guess you would say creatures or beings. I've seen these dark clouds, and they got kind of a little sparkle to them. But the ones that I've encountered the most were the ones that looked like humans. They looked like people, but when I would get close to them, you could see the black in their eyes. And then I could tell that like their face was just not the same. And for the longest time, it used to scare the crap out of me. It was pretty scary. And then when I started getting more active in church and everything, I started going to these like Benny Hinn crusades and stuff, and I started paying attention more to what God says in the Bible, like the ones that are like direct messages. I feel like, anyways.
Like in the first person
Yeah, well,
when
maybe.
he's speaking.
I just see this as being something that I would say that, okay, we'll just say this. Okay, God gave us the authority. And he said that there is, and love, okay, first of all, God is love. I want to say that. So love is unconditional. And then I want to get to this part. Love will never lose. So if you keep that love in your heart and know exactly who you are, that you're a child of God, and that he gave us the authority and the power, so nothing else can hurt us. As long as you know who you are and know who created you, you should never, ever, ever have anything to fear. Dreams or in this 3D living, living this life, don't ever fear anything except for your own loss of power. And that's the only way you can do that, is to give it away. So you just have to be careful though, because these things can be very deceiving. But just learn to protect yourself by praying to God before you go to sleep, that you have protection, and it kind of helps you subconsciously, or in your mind. That way you don't like go to sleep with fear already thinking about it. I also cleanse my space, and I use crystals for protection in astral travel too, because crystals, the way I see it, were a tool that God has put on this earth for us to use to assist us with everything. So
wonder how that relates to people that have like a bad trip on hallucinogenics. If you're going in with bad thoughts on your mind, or you're just reckless, they say you could have a bad trip. I wonder how dreams relate to hallucinations while you're awake.
How I see it is basically astral projection, and then using these different things like the shrooms or whatever it is that you're wanting to use to take this trip. They've used all different things throughout history, but whenever you do this, you are ultimately entering an altered state of consciousness. So, but these things usually are chemicals that will tap into different parts of your brain, so that like the places that you don't normally go are probably going to open up for you. So I don't know if that kind of answered any of the questions. But...
Yeah, I've heard Joe Rogan talk about ayahuasca a lot, and he's always got guests on there that are talking about ayahuasca, and they see beings and things. And I remember whenever I was taking a class on herbology out in Santa Fe, New Mexico, there was like a medicine man that was the professor, and he talked about mescaline trips on cactuses and things like that. And it was a rite of passage that every person had to do. That's how you got your name. And one of the things that he talked about was a medicine man named Blackfoot, who was actually tracked down by the FBI, and they came in and took all of his computers and all of his furniture, took all of his cabinets and everything, took all of every stitch of paper in the house, because apparently he was writing symbols of a language he couldn't possibly know. And the FBI took it all conveniently. I mean, it's a good story for a book that, he has no evidence now. But what he was talking about was similar to it's a little bit similar to what I hear Tom Cruise and them talking about with the Scientology, that there's a federation of aliens, and that there are good ones and bad ones, and that the good ones are protecting us from the bad ones, and the ones that go around killing all of the slicing up the cows are the bad ones, and that there are good ones that are protecting us from getting abducted.
Like the Men in Black.
Yeah. Well, there supposedly there's all these alien species out there, and some of them are protecting us, and they've got some kind of treaty to keep us from being messed with.
So I've heard somebody else explain the whole situation, actually, but I don't want to.
I'd like to hear that. Was that a military guy?
Huh?
Was it a military guy?
My dad.
Oh, he knows about it.
Well, yeah, but I'd have to let him tell it to you. I wouldn't want to ruin.
Oh, I'd love to have Doc Hop on the show.
His explanation about aliens.
I would love to have Doc Hop on the show. Here's an interesting, really old illustration. It shows a person going over into heaven. And I think it's interesting. Last week I was showing some pictures of heaven on earth. And I think there is there is something to be said about the possibility that maybe everything they're talking about when they're talking about heaven isn't occurring after you're dead, but is actually happening now. Sometimes Jesus talks about that the kingdom is nigh. And they talk about when all these things will pass away and the end of the age, but doesn't necessarily mean that the whole world's going to blow up and we're all going to die. Heaven could be something that happens periodically while you're still alive. I mean, that the Bible's full of stories where people are going to heaven and seeing heaven and having angels talk to them and being messages given to them. And I mean, if we're going to draw a conclusion about our own experience and what the Bible says, these pictures right here have to mean something to us. We can't just blow it all off like, oh, the veil being lifted, or, you know, messengers coming to you. You can't just blow it all off. I mean, the Bible's telling you it's real. You can't nitpick. You can't just cherry pick the parts that you like.
Well, hey,
Mhm.
remember last week we talked about kind of like time dilation. You know, we talked about the universe being billions of years old, but also depending on where you're looking at it from, like you mentioned, if you're looking at it from the inside looking out, it could be thousands of years old. You know,
6
I
days
think,
old.
yeah, there, and it's like, was it, I can't remember if it was a passage or just some people, but we always heard that phrase, a day to us is a year to God, a day to God is a year to us. You know, it's
Yeah.
kind of like, you know, being outside of the realm of time, a different realm of time than what we're in. You know, it's kind of like if you could travel at the speed of light, you go back in time.
That reminds me of another thing I wanted to bring up that David was talking about. We kept talking about the significance of the number 7. If we are a soul inside of a body, I thought another significant thing that we found out from science about the number 7 is that's how long it takes for your body to create a whole new body. In 7 years, you're not the same person you were before. Think about it. When you were Robert, when you were a little kid, you were in a different body then. All your cells have completely created new cells since then, and all your old cells are all dead. So technically, you're not the same Robert that you were in 1985.
That's why you remember Back to the Future. They always said you can't meet yourself because you could cause a paradox and unravel the whole entire
Butterfly effect, isn't it, or something like that?
But well, Doc used to always tell Marty McFly, you can't encounter yourself in time
Paradox or
because
something.
you'll cause a paradox. But like you said, how could you actually cause a paradox when the matter is not the same? Like I said, you know, we
Well,
shed
it
our
was
skin
because he
cells.
revealed too much information. Like if,
Yeah, but he couldn't meet himself either. Like
because he would,
it's almost like
because it
the
was all
same
about the
matter
fact that
occupied
if
the same
he messed,
space.
it was because Marty McFly, his mother was attracted to Marty McFly, and so
Yeah.
if his parents didn't get together, he would never be born. That was
He
the
could
whole
become
thing.
his own grandfather or something, like a Futurama.
But it would be a different person and not the same body.
But you know, they mentioned, I think it was in that they mentioned about like, you know, kind of like same matter occupying the same space.
Edgar Cayce has a lot to say about that type of sciencey thing, and this guy's from the time, like in that movie, they talked a lot about Jules Verne. I want to say, didn't they talk about Jules Verne in that movie or
Back to the
references to
Future
it?
3, because they're both fans of Jules Verne's writing.
Right, yeah, in part 3. So this would have been actually around that time, that part when they went back in time to the Old West. This would have been around that time. Edgar Cayce, I think he was active throughout the early 20th century, but it would have been in the time of, you know, revolvers and trains, you know, that old era. So Edgar Cayce, he went into dreams. He sat on the couch and he had all kinds of dreams. I remember reading something about him receiving letters from people all over the country that were wanting to know things, and he would answer their questions. Layla, do you know anything about, can you add more about Edgar Cayce? I've seen his specials. I've seen him on TV, but I don't know that much about him. I was really surprised to find out that he had a lot to say about Jesus. As a matter of fact, he's got a book about Edgar Cayce called The Story of Jesus. And since he's on the other side half the time, I think it'd be really interesting to know more about what he said about all this.
Well, Edgar Cayce was popular, known for his ability to do what's called these Akashic readings. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with or have ever heard of the Akashic records, but it is equivalent to, or what the Bible calls the Book of Life. And this is something that is available to all of us but we just have to learn how to access that, because everything is on a conscious level. And honestly, I want to say that is why it has been like difficult for us to even get to the speed of light. It's because we're meant to discover all this stuff on a conscious level, and unlock all these new gateways and new doorways. And Edgar Cayce was, I want to say, he was pretty awesome. But I'm a fan. So, but these Akashic records is, like I said, something that we can all access. It's always been here, and it's not like any like record hall, or it's not a library, a physical one, but it's a place that we can get to that has all of the files, or however you in your mind would see it, but everything that's ever happened, that is happening now, that's gonna happen, just like they say in the Book of Life. It has all of our names written in it, and also it has, like, for each soul, it has all the information from their past lives and any possible futures. And that's where we can, when we access that, those things that we see for the future, or prophetic dreams and stuff like that, a lot of times it's accessed through dreams. Those are possible futures. So I believe, and I've seen where Edgar Cayce has accessed his own Akashic record, and he was actually the reincarnate of Jesus. So I don't know if you guys have heard that yet or not, but I thought that was very interesting.
Oh, I haven't heard that. I see that it says, one of his quotes is, Jesus Christ is the eventual destiny of each and every soul.
Mhm.
He also said, this is something from this book. Many individuals have incorrectly assumed that the goal of being in the earth is to simply reach heaven, find enlightenment, or somehow get out of the earth. And yet this is a perspective quite different from that contained in Cayce's material. Instead, Cayce believed that as children of God, our mission was to somehow bring spirit into the earth.
Mhm.
I think that's really interesting, that his observation is that we're all trying to get off this rock like it's a prison, and we're not we don't even take time to smell the roses. Just, I do feel like a lot of people are just waiting for their time to be up.
Mhm.
For ye are a corpuscle in the body of God, thus a co-creator with him in what ye think and ye do. The law Jesus is referring to in the Old Testament, specifically the 82nd Psalm, which asserts that not only are we God's children, but we are also God's, to be sure, in the making as well. Although some individuals may be offended with the statement that everyone is a part of God, in recent years, more and more people working with esoteric spiritual traditions have come to that very conclusion. Unfortunately, oftentimes those individuals who accept this premise have forgotten the appropriate attitudinal stance that should accompany it. In reality, this claim is not so much true as a verbal statement made about oneself. Instead, it is only true as we become godlike toward one another. So it's not about yourself. None of this is about me. It's all about my interactions with everyone that I talk to. And whenever you have this when I watch the near-death experiences, I often hear people talk about a life in rewind, like they're watching a video and they see everything that ever happened in their life, and they have to come to they feel, they don't feel how they felt in that situation, but you have to live out how the other person felt. How did you make every person you ever hurt? You have to jump into their role and feel their pain. And apparently that's quite painful, but in the end, it's so much better after that. And that's kind of what's going to happen when you go to heaven. You have this rewind. There's also something that they talk about with a download, like a cosmic download. She was talking about this Akashic record. I often hear people with near-death experiences talk about uploading all of their thoughts to the collective, basically, something to that effect. So all of your experiences will become collective knowledge to the spiritual host of the heavens. For the master, Jesus, even the Christ, is the pattern for every man in the earth, whether he be Gentile or Jew, Parthian or Greek, for all have the pattern, whether they call on that name or not. But there is no other name given under heaven whereby men may be saved from themselves. In this last video right here, we got about 5 minutes left. I'm not going to play it or anything, but I think it's an interesting video. It's a lot of people that are Christians may be offended by what it says, but one thing that it's actually two different parts. The first part is someone talking about the real message of Jesus. And then the second part of it is someone who is channeling Jesus and actually basically having an interview with Jesus's spirit. And it's not something I would probably discuss in church with a lot of people in church, just because they might take it the wrong way. But I think with all my study of history and research and reading the Bible, I think that it's probably more true than a lot of the things. It's definitely more true than Easter and Christmas, I'll tell you that. And we talked about idolatry a few weeks ago, and we talked about how, you know, everyone's starting to realize that Christmas is not the real date Jesus was born. The Christmas tree is not, it's a pagan symbol. It's borderline evil. Easter was really a sex goddess named Ishtar that murdered babies. I think that, you know, we're coming to a time when we can put away the childish things. You know, that's another biblical, when I was a child, I thought as a child. And when I became an adult, I put away childish things. You know, it's time for us to stop. That's kind of why we made this channel, the Tabernacle of Truth, to be able to talk about things that we couldn't talk about in church, to ask the hard questions, to do the research, give each other's opinions and see where it leads. But this is what the guy says. He says, mystics hid this information. Heretics burned for it. So a lot of the people that burned in the Middle Ages during the Inquisition are people who spoke Hebrew. There was a significant amount of Hebrews killed. Their books were used as kindling to burn their bodies in southern Italy. And in Spain, the Spanish Inquisition. Why is it a Spanish Inquisition? Because that's where all the Hebrews moved. In the Crusades, 90% of all Hebrews lived in Spain. Only 10% of the world's population of Hebrews lived in Jerusalem. And that's the reason why they were going back there to conquer it, because the Hebrew princes of Spain had married into the French princes, and they convinced them that, hey, we should go to war. I always wondered, why would an English Saxon Viking go to Jerusalem and die to try to liberate that land? Well, it makes a whole lot of sense if they were part Hebrew, or at least descendants of Hebrews. Because when Rome destroyed Jerusalem, they sent out their princes. The high priests of the temple sent out their kids. Where did they go? They went to Italy, and from Italy they went to Spain, and then they married in as dukes and earls into the royalty of England and into the royalty of France. The word knight actually comes from the Spanish Jews. So the knights of France, northern France, around the Rhine River, up into the Netherlands, they were descendants of the Jewish high priests, and they were the ones who first allowed the Jews to lend money and to worship their own gods, their own religion.
It's kind of like we're a book, Holy Blood, Holy Grail. You know, about Mary and supposedly moving to France.
Well, here's some notes on what this guy says in this video. One thing he says is it's a depressing thing in modern Christianity to think that, from the perspective a lot of people have, Jesus did something none of us can do. We can't be an example like Jesus, because us climbing up on a cross and we can't duplicate what he did. And so there's like this air of like, well, yeah, of course you saved everyone and you saved everybody because you're God's son. I'm not God's son, so I can't do what you did. And that is kind of depressing, that we could never be like Christ. We could never fully do what Christ did. But the second part, when they're channeling Jesus, this is what Jesus says. He says, he was a soul that agreed to go for the ride along to a cosmic event in which one flesh and blood human opened a door to a new way of thinking. So he was a soul just like every other soul, and God said, hey, mind if I jump inside of you? And he's like, he like signed a soul contract. Yeah, God, I'll go with you. And he got to witness the whole thing. And now that event's over, the soul that was Jesus is saying, this is what he had, his own doubts about the whole thing. He said the Christ energy did it all to him, and he was skeptical about it because he thought he was going too early. He didn't think the earth was ready for it. And he was even talking now like he still thinks he showed up too early. That's kind of weird. I recommend that you at least watch it. I don't, it's none of my business if you believe it or not, but it's worth opening your mind to, I think, just to kind of think what Jesus would say if Jesus was being interviewed. Jesus was a threat to power structures. They hid all this information from us. And up here it says mystics hid it. What he means is everyone that knew this, that this idea of this right here, I and my Father are one, that God was a human being, a normal flesh and blood human being who God entered, and that God, any of us could be entered by God. Any one of us could become entered by God. And the fact that's a threat, because what he's saying is the king has no power. The Pharisees have no power. We're all just children of God. And that I have the ability to be divine as much as you do. You're not a God. And this destroys the whole notion of hierarchy, of people being higher up in society, people having authority over you. If every single citizen is sovereign and can make their own decisions and have authority, that is a major threat to the Roman way of life. That's why they had to kill him. That's the major threat to the Pharisees. That's why they had to kill them. And that what he says right here, what he says, the mystics hid it. He's talking about, like, say, Leonardo da Vinci, people like that are talking in cryptic language and code. The only way it was passed down is hidden language, because a lot of the people were burned. A lot of the people that were burned were not witches. They were burned with Bibles written in their own language. I mean, how could you call yourself a Christian if you're using someone's, regardless of what Bible it is, how could you call yourself a Christian if you use a Bible as kindling to burn someone?
Because at that time, you look at Galileo Galilei. At that time, it wasn't about being a good Christian. It was about making sure you as the church kept your power. Galileo, all he said was, the earth wasn't the center of the universe. And they sentenced him as a heretic.
One thing they talk about is Psalms 82, 5-8. They know not, neither will they understand. They walk on in darkness. All the fountains, all the foundations of the earth are out of course. I have said, ye are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. But ye shall die like men, and fall like one of the princes. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for thou shalt inherit all nations. So, I mean, that's the word of God right there saying, I have said ye are gods and all of you are children of the Most High. Here's another one from John 10, 28 through 30. I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand. My Father, who has given them to me, is greater than all. No one can snatch them out of my Father's hand. I and the Father are one. So there's a bit of a debate in here on whether or not Jesus is the one person who could ever be God, or if his message was God is in all of us. We are all capable of being at one with him.
I would say technically it's both of them, because I'm sure you guys probably don't want to get too far into it, but there are a lot of things with our like they said, when you choose things, like before you are ever born, you choose these certain life events, and you choose your life, you choose your parents, you know, and then you choose your birth date, like for, when you want to be born. It all matters because of the lineage, as far as your DNA and things that are going to be possible, uh, because of your lineage or DNAs. That's something that they talk about if you ever start researching star seeds or looking into that. That is one thing that is a big thing that makes a difference on a lot of this stuff.
I was talking to a person who died several times, and I know they have some things that they're repressing. They claim they can't remember what exactly happened, but I know that they've said it at one time, and I think they're just tired of talking about it because people ask them about it all the time. And one thing he expressed to me is he didn't understand why he came back. And I told him that he chose it. From what I understand, you're asked your opinion, and I heard one NDE person talking about how they knew that they were going to be paralyzed, and they decided to come back anyway because either they had some further mission they needed to accomplish, or because of the love they had for their family. And they knew that they would never walk again and they would be paralyzed, but they came back anyway. And this particular person that I know personally, they were kind of struggling with the idea of, like, why did I come back? Because they don't know what their mission is. And I think that's where all of us need to be trying to get to, is finding purpose in our lives. I think that's it's what makes life worth living, having a purpose. And
what happened to Brent Griffith? He said when he went to heaven or whatever that he saw people there, but like you don't see their face. He said they were just like this white, brilliant white light, but you could still recognize who they were. Yeah, but he said he had to come back because he said he met Jesus and that he had to come back because like he still had more work to do here on earth, But because I talked to him the day before this happened, and I was like, man, I thought he was a goner because all he was doing, he was begging for water. He was like, there was other people in the room. All you could do was beg for water the whole time. And then he was going into surgery. And then the next day, the next day he called and he was just back to normal. He was full of energy and he was telling me this whole story about, how he had gone to heaven and everything. So I don't know. There's something to it.
Yeah, I definitely think there's something to it for sure. This is a devotional from Brigham Young University that talks about dreaming. It's kind of a guide, I think, for healthy dreaming. I think when the outward organs of thought and perception are released from their activity, the nerves unstrung, and the whole of mortal humanity lies hushed in quiet slumbers. In order to renew its strength and vigor, it is then that the spiritual organs are at liberty, in a certain degree, to assume their wonted functions. Our spirit body has eyes to see, ears to hear, tongue to speak, and so on. The spiritual organs are susceptible of converse with deity or of communion with angels. So this is a Christian entity here, Brigham Young University out in Utah. I think.
Well, they're Mormon.
Mormon, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
Okay,
I
Mr.
don't know what
Christian.
you call it. I guess.
Well,
they're
I
Christian.
think it's kind of
Kinda.
old school Christian. You know, it's kind of what people were like back in the 1800s.
The Mormons.
Yeah, I
They
think it's a lot
thought-
like. I think their beliefs are a lot like the beliefs of a lot of the Quakers and things like that when they came over here.
No, they had a.
being
They
part
thought
of it.
they had a new prophetic story that to add to the Bible about Joseph Smith.
And Jesus being in the Americas,
Yeah,
giving his message to Indians,
right.
you know,
Something
and
like
his
that. Yeah, I
tablet,
think I've heard that before. I don't know much about it, but
his tablets that Joseph Smith found in the woods because an angel guided him, but suddenly they mysteriously disappeared. So
yeah, he found them in
to
a cave.
reread them.
They were like gold plated or something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And they've
And
got
they got lost.
He was,
like
he was
mystical,
visited by an angel.
and they got mystical underwear. And,
Yeah, they have special underwear, don't they?
mhm.
It's something they say about recording your dreams. In general, recording dreams strengthens the relationship between the Lord and the individual to which the dream is given. As we record inspired dreams, we can more readily see the Lord's hand in our life and his tender mercies extended in our behalf. All right, well, we've been on here for over 2 hours, so let's go ahead and wrap it up. David, you were talking about frequencies. I think next week we should talk about frequencies.
We
Well,
did that a few weeks ago.
We talked about light, I think, and got into it a little
A
bit.
few weeks ago, you talked about
Were we
frequencies.
gonna? Yeah, were we gonna try to like do a character study again, or like a story from the Bible, or?
Well, our tradition is to let our guests choose. So, Layla, is there some character in the Bible that you'd like us all to read more about, or someone you personally are confused about? I'd really like to maybe look into something that you want to know more about so that we research it for a week and we all come into the topic fresh. None of us are trying to preach at each other here. We're all just I feel like it's more God led if we all go in cold, like we have no idea where this conversation's going, and I feel like that makes it authentic.
Yeah.
So, is there a character that you can think of that maybe you don't know much about, you'd like to know more about?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm obsessed with like studying this shit. Sorry, but I'm like really obsessed with studying everything. Like, so I would say the only one that maybe that sticks out would be I want to do maybe Elijah.
Elijah, the prophet of fire.
Elijah or Ezekiel, either one, or something. I think
We have talked about
would be more
Ezekiel a couple of weeks ago. We talked a little bit about Ezekiel. Ezekiel had a dream as well.
Mhm.
We talked about what that meant. Me and David were talking about what the different faces meant. And we talked about how it could have been a metaphor for the 12 tribes of Israel. David, what do you think? Elijah or Ezekiel?
Sure one, man. I mean, I'm good, or we can just talk about prophets, or
That's a big topic there. For me
so
personally, I don't.
either one of those is good with me.
As you can see, I collect a lot of information. If I was to do prophets, I think this thing would be 6 miles long. So let's just try Elijah.
Elijah.
I have a friend in Joplin. His band is called the Order of Elijah, and one of the only book I ever got from my grandma when she died was called The Prophet of Fire, and it's about Elijah. And I did read a little bit about it, but I haven't read the whole book. So it looks like I got some reading to do this week.
Awesome.
All right. Well, you guys have a great week. Let's meet up again. Do you guys like 6